I know what you all are feeling. Disappointment that Kat is not preaching. It's okay, I feel it too, and we'll get through it. After all, it is Mother's Day, and she has 2 young children. In addition to being Mother's Day, today, the 4th Sunday of Easter, is often called Good Shepherd Sunday. We are reminded that Christ tends to us like a shepherd who knows his sheep. So this happy day of the liturgical calendar, I'm here to talk to you about the plight of refugees. Don't worry, Kat will be back next week. I am going to talk about mothers and about how their children can come to know about the world, about themselves, and a bit of why that kind of knowing really matters. The mothers I'm talking about are our neighbors, refugee mothers living in a neighborhood about 3 miles from this church. These mothers have been denied the right to literacy by militant groups such as the Taliban and the Burmese junta for generations. Now, of course, you all have heard of the Taliban, and you understand how they've deliberately used the tool of denying an education to women, and to men as well, to prevent them from learning to think for themselves, from having any power. And that denial also serves to keep the people they've suppressed vulnerable and powerless long after they escape Afghanistan. This is a situation for many families living in the West Ridge neighborhood of Chicago, where hundreds of our Afghan allies settled after the exodus in 2021. And they are not alone. The Burmese junta have been working to exterminate the Rohingya people in Myanmar for decades. Their efforts have been declared a genocide by the UN and the US government. Denial of the right to read is only one of the junta's tools. Government-sponsored sexual assault, mass murder, and statelessness are others. Today in West Ridge, just south of Evanston, where Dodge Avenue becomes California Avenue, that is the home to one of the largest Rohingya communities in the world. Other refugees, including families from the Sudan, Ethiopia, Bhutan, Syria, and Eritrea, all live in that same neighborhood, clustered around the intersection of Devon and California. And in addition to the deliberate denial of education by militant groups, many refugee families have suffered simply as collateral damage to war. When families must flee their homes due to political violence, how long do you think it takes them to be resettled? How long would you expect it to take if you were a refugee? On average, it's 10 years. 10 years of waiting with their lives on hold, in camps and in transit, unable to work or attend school. Think about it. 10 years is a long time to wait with your life on hold. Think about the fact that half of all refugees are children. Think about how much precious opportunity to learn is lost. That's how the trauma of far-off wars and the weapons wielded by militant groups continues to cause damage. Here, today, just south of Evanston, just at the end of this school year, children who've been denied schooling, children whose families have been denied literacy for generations, are experiencing an ongoing challenge to learn. So I want you to imagine that you are a Rohingya mother. You and your parents were forcibly denied access to school. And if you're a typical Rohingya mother, like the many that I know, you communicate in 4 or 5 different languages, including Rohingya, Burmese, Malay, Urdu, as well as English. And despite all of this linguistic ability, you have only rarely encountered printed text in any language. You were married and had your first child at around age 14 or 15. Of course you want your children to be safe, to be healthy, to be well-fed, but almost as much, you are desperate for them to get an education because your personal experience helps you to understand how difficult it is to navigate modern society without being able to read. You always feel small is the exact words that one father shared with me to describe how it feels to be illiterate. And he used a very small voice. You always feel alone. Your dreams of illiteracy your dreams of literacy remain on hold, because even after you escape the soldiers in Myanmar, you're going to have to wait about 8 years, undocumented and unwelcome in Malaysia. 8 years during which you do not ever leave the tiny space that you call home, not ever, due to a lack of safety. Eventually, you're finally resettled in Chicago. You're given an apartment in West Ridge, where there are many other Rohingya. You and your husband and children begin a new life with 3 whole months of rent assistance. 3 whole months. You also have a temporary social worker who can help you to find a job even though you don't speak English. And she can explain to you how to make payments on the debt that you owe the US government for the commercial airline tickets which carried you and your children here from across the world. We can all try to imagine it, but I'm not sure we can really succeed. I have been humbled by meeting many of these women at O'Hare. They are so brave. It sounds like a terrifying nightmare to me, and of course they are terrified, but also so hopeful. One of the most hopeful days is the first day of school, when their children are enrolled in Chicago public schools in the grade appropriate to their age, no matter their skill level. These mothers are confident their children are going to fulfill the dream of generations. They are going to learn to read. Unfortunately, the reality is for many of these kids, there is no path to true literacy. They do receive special English language learning, which of course is fantastic. It's a vital support, and often it's enough for most migrants and immigrants whose families did attend some kind of school at some time. But for these refugee kids, they need so much more. It is not at all uncommon for me to meet students who've been enrolled in school for a year or more, and they don't know what an equal sign means. They don't know all of the sounds associated with the letters of the alphabet. That is not the curriculum that their teachers are supposed to be teaching them. So these students and families are often left with the feeling that the soldiers were right. People like me are just too stupid to learn, and we don't deserve an education. It is heartbreaking. But it is Mother's Day, it's Good Shepherd Sunday, so I'm coming to the happy part of my story. If you drive due west on Main Street until you get to the Crown Community Center, then turn left on Dodge and keep going south past the Levy Center, you will come to the old Chicago Public Library building that is the new home to FORA, Forging Opportunities for Refugees in America. It's a bit more than a 10-minute drive. I am the co-founder and volunteer chief education officer at FORA, which is how I ended up speaking to you about refugees this morning, instead of listening to Kat's thoughts on Revelations. And I'm excited to tell you that at FORA, we do provide these unschooled refugee students with 10 to 20 hours each week of individualized tutoring in foundational skills. Our students are aged 6 through 22, and they work one-on-one with trained volunteer tutors. They learn to read, they learn to do math. More importantly, they learn to believe in themselves, and they learn they are welcome. These kids are succeeding as scholars, and many of them are achieving remarkable success, including participating in Northwestern's program for gifted learners and earning full scholarships to college. In addition to academic support, the technical name for our intervention is high-intensity tutoring. FORA has a team of family school partnership officers who work regularly with parents and teachers so that these mothers have a friend and advocate to help them navigate the complexities of an American education. And the best part of this story is how much you are needed. These kids, their mothers, your neighbors from around the world, and all of us at FORA, we need you. We have about 250 volunteers who come in to tutor at least 4 hours every week. Our volunteers include many members of the local community in West Ridge, professionals and retirees from Evanston, and also a lot of students, Loyola students, graduate students, and undergraduates from Northwestern and Nepal, high school students from ETHS and Lane Tech. These students come and go each term, so we always need new volunteer tutors. And of course, you know why you're hearing this from the pulpit. This is your call. St. Benedict's command is on the sign out front. All guests who present themselves are to be welcomed as Christ. These refugees are our guests, and it is our responsibility as Christians to welcome them robustly. I mean, look at Dorcas. Paul made a point to tell us she was always helping out in the community. And what happened? Peter resurrected her. He even gave her a cool new Greek name. Another important aspect of Tabitha's story has to do with when it occurs. In Acts, after the worst has happened, maybe the disciples were feeling powerless and missing the connected feeling they had when Jesus was physically with them. Maybe the message of love your neighbor had once seemed inevitable to them and now felt out of reach. In that context, Peter not only raises Tabitha, he shows Tabitha to the people so that her story can be known. This miracle is not just about saving Tabitha, it's about how saving Tabitha impacted her community so that the disciples could once again feel some support. I'm no theologian, but I do understand how illiteracy contributes to feelings of powerlessness, loneliness, and isolation. But it isn't just refugees who feel powerless and alone these days. In 2023, the U.S. Surgeon General declared an epidemic of loneliness in an 82-page report describing the vital importance of social connection to individual health and well-being. Loneliness can also contribute to levels of depression that can feel almost like death. And one solution, as I'm sure all of you know, is reaching out to help others. Volunteering truly can help nurture us back to a more vibrant life. But this epidemic of isolation isn't just an individual problem to be addressed by cheering ourselves up with a rewarding volunteer experience. Personal isolation leads to growing political polarization and social mistrust. Isolated people tend to assume the worst about their fellow citizens, especially those from different backgrounds. Our communities are losing the social connections that sustain us all. Our society is in crisis. Robert Putnam is a Harvard psychologist who's been researching community bonds and individual behavior for the past 50 years. In the 90s, he wrote a research paper and then a book titled Bowling Alone, which describes the decline of participation in communal activities of all kinds. Back in the 90s, Putnam reported that people were still bowling just as much as they had done in decades earlier, but they were no longer participating in leagues that brought them into contact with neighbors from different walks of life. Instead, people were bowling alone. Putnam has continued his research and recently released a documentary titled Join or Die. Here's a spoiler alert. The trend towards social isolation has continued and gotten worse. Last year, the New York Times declared that dining alone is the new bowling alone. The headline read, "Americans are unhappier than ever. Solo dining may be a sign." The news story reported that eating meals alone has gone up by 53% in the past 10 years. We truly are a society full of communities in crisis. But Putnam also offers us some hopeful advice. Join or Die isn't just a catchy title. He has evidence supporting the strengthening power of connecting, strengthening not just individuals, but strengthening communities. He describes two distinct types of social connections, bonding and bridging. Bonding connections occur among people in groups who share a social identity, such as close friends, family, or St. Luke's. We all share a common commitment to knowing and following Christ. Bridging connections are characterized by loose ties among people from different demographic groups, like bowling leagues. Bridging organizations, and especially charitable, nonprofit, and volunteering organizations such as Fora, have special potential for strengthening potentially polarized communities and building social trust. Understanding these aspects of our modern society explains why participating in our Fora community changes not only the lives of our refugee students, not only the lives of our volunteers, but also simultaneously strengthens our society. Your participation is vital. Last summer at Fora, we had student interns from 5 continents tutoring alongside community members who grew up visiting the library in our very building. Grandparents and grandchildren tutored side by side, in addition to people from all ethnic, racial, and religious backgrounds. This diversity means that members of our Fora community hold various different opinions and cultural expectations, which can sometimes be a challenge. However, we have found that a shared commitment to education, combined with the experience of doing the work together, is more powerful than any disagreements we may have. In fact, forming a community where we can experience disagreement is exactly why our work together is so important and impactful. Our heterogeneity is part of what makes Fora so strong, so precious, and so valuable to those of us who find a sense of belonging there. I want you to feel that sense of belonging. It's easy. We train you. You don't even have to know math. You just need to bring your curiosity to learn, a passion for education. We especially need tutors this summer, weekdays during the day between the hours of 9 in the morning to 1:30 in the afternoon, and in the fall in the afternoons from 4:30 to 9 at night. I always say Fora needs 3 things: volunteers, donors, and people to spread the word about our amazing refugee families. So if you don't feel called to be a tutor, I do hope you'll consider other ways you can be part of our community. Do you know anyone who might have some time? High school students? Anyone who's looking for a practical action to heal some of the brokenness that we are bombarded by in the news? Tell them about Fora. We are happy to come and speak to groups large and small. How about a Fora information dinner party? Because you might need an excuse to help your friends avoid dining alone. Or take a tour. Bring your friends or your committee on a fact-finding excursion so that you can witness the joyful vibe of Fora for yourself. We need tutors with all levels of experience, and we are especially looking for retired teachers, people who might want to tutor online, people with library experience to help with our book collection. We need speech and language therapists and all sorts of people with professional skills. So now you know all about Fora. And I'm happy to answer questions after the service so you can know more. But to really know our neighbors, you have to commit to them. I believe that Christ expects us to care for his flock, for his community, which is our community. We have to know each other and be known, to join together, or our society will die. I promise you will find joy and maybe even new life, whether you choose to participate as a volunteer, a donor, or a messenger. Please join us.